Madame Sawa Mensah, the undisputed queen of Ghanaian cocoa fortunes and owner of the monolithic Golden Pod Holdings, regarded her two identical daughters with a look that was equal parts disdain and destiny. The setting was the breakfast hall of their sprawling, marble-clad estate in East Legon, a fortress of wealth that shielded them from the vibrant chaos of Accra outside. Sunlight, filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminated the tension between the trio. 30 years old, both of you, Madame Sawa stated, her voice a low, perfectly polished mahogany. Yet, you drift through life like expensive ghosts, relying on my accounts, my name, my air conditioning. It stops now. Akua and Adwoa, twins who shared the same striking, high cheekbone beauty but possessed vastly different spirits, stiffened. Akua, the pragmatic one, sat upright, her face betraying only calculation. Adwoa, the dreamer, fiddled with the gold chain around her neck, her large eyes wide with apprehension. They knew their mother's challenges were never benign, they were tests of fire designed to forge ruthlessness. The test is simple, Sawa continued, pushing two slim, sealed envelopes across the mahogany table. Each of you will take this. It contains $100,000, a fortune to the average person, a pittance to a Mensah. You will leave this house, immediately. You will rent modest accommodation in OSU or cantonments, whatever you can afford. And you will not return until you have secured a husband. A suitable husband. The unspoken condition hung heavy in the air. A suitable husband meant one whose wealth, power, and prestige could rival their own lineage, or at least survive scrutiny. Akua's eyes narrowed in challenge, instantly assessing the logistics. Adwoa's mouth dropped open in genuine dismay. Mother, that's barbaric. Adwoa finally whispered. We are supposed to find love, not participate in an auction. Love is a luxury for those who can afford incompetence, Adwoa, Sawa corrected sharply. You will learn to love stability. The $100,000 is your safety net, your budget for living, investing, and impressing. Waste it, and you come back here penniless and disinherited. Succeed, and your husband gains access to the Mensah empire. She paused, her gaze piercing. The first one to present a verifiable marriage certificate to a man of genuine substance wins the lion's share of my liquid assets, a staggering bonus. Akua smiled, a thin, predatory curve of her lips. This was a game she understood. She was already mentally discarding Adwoa's romantic nonsense, seeing the $100,000 not as a budget, but as starting capital for a strategic acquisition. Her sister's weakness was her sentimentality, Akua's strength was her absolute lack of it. I accept the terms, Mama, Akua stated, picking up her envelope with a decisive snap. Adwoa sighed, feeling the weight of the challenge settling on her shoulders. She glanced at Akua, recognizing the competitive fire that had always burned between them, now stoked into an inferno by their mother's cruel game. Adwoa had always hoped for a simple, true romance. Now, she was forced to seek a partner under the relentless pressure of a financial deadline and the scrutiny of her fiercely ambitious sister. Within hours, their designer luggage was packed into two modest SUVs, the opulent estate gates swinging shut behind them, symbolizing the severance of their pampered lives. Akua drove straight to a high-end estate agent, determined to secure an address that suggested wealth without screaming heiress. Adwoa, however, drove towards a quaint, tree-lined street in Lab 1, seeking a quiet, unassuming apartment where she could, perhaps, forget the rules and just meet people. The city of Accra, a sprawling tapestry of enterprise, luxury, and grit, swallowed the two heiresses whole. Akua started with lavish parties, targeting the financial elite and political science. Adwoa began volunteering at a local community center, hoping to find character over currency. Their paths immediately diverged, but the clock had begun ticking for both. The hunt was on, and Sawa Mensah was watching, waiting to see which daughter had inherited her steel, and which one would crumble. Akua immediately established herself at the confluence of Accra's elite power and old money. She hosted sleek cocktail events at her cantonment apartment, which was meticulously staged to look like the well-managed home of a single, highly successful professional. Her primary target was Kojo Asante, a man whose family owned a major infrastructure development firm and whose sharp mind promised expansion across the West African market. Kojo was exactly what Madame Sawa had ordered: substantial, secure, and ruthlessly forward-thinking. Akua cultivated him expertly, treating their interactions like strategic board meetings disguised as romance. She didn't feign deep affection, she offered partnership, strategic alignment, and the subtle promise of access to the Mensa lineage, a currency Kojo appreciated more than sentiment. They discussed land deals and potential IPOs over vintage champagne, and Akua quickly secured her position as his most compelling match. She believed her victory was only a matter of weeks. Meanwhile, Adwa found genuine solace and purpose volunteering at the Hope Springs Youth Center in Labuan. Her $100,000 remained untouched, mostly sitting in a term deposit, a monument to her reluctance to participate in the auction. Here, she met Ni Okekoi, the center's lead architect and charismatic director. Ni had forgone profitable corporate work to dedicate his life to building affordable, sustainable community spaces. He was kind, intelligent, and utterly oblivious to her family's wealth, seeing Adwa only as a compassionate and hardworking volunteer. Adwa felt a profound, exhilarating connection she had never known, a sense of purpose that made her mother's glittering cocoa empire seem utterly hollow. Ni saw her kindness and her deep, genuine investment in the center's future, a stark contrast to the calculated woman of his brief, previous experience. The twins met for a tense lunch in Airport Residential, the contrast between them agonizingly clear. Akua was draped in Italian silk, radiating cold victory. Adwa wore simple Ghanaian cotton, glowing with authentic happiness. Adwa spoke excitedly of Ni's vision and how he inspired her. Akua spoke coolly of Kojo's impressive net worth and political connections. Akua instantly recognized the danger. Adwa was finding real happiness, which, in their mother's complex world of test, translated to a different, powerful kind of winning. Sawa admired financial power, but she also privately valued emotional leverage and deep loyalty. If Adwa married for true, demonstrable connection, Sawa might declare that emotional substance was the ultimate prize, thus giving Adwa an unexpected edge. Akua could not allow that genuine love to triumph over her careful strategy. Akua immediately began digging into Ni's background. It took only one discreet phone call to a shady property developer acquaintance to unearth the financial crisis Ni was desperately hiding. The Hope Springs Youth Center was built on land with a contentious title, and Ni had personally guaranteed a hefty short-term loan to secure the lease and start construction on the essential new wing. The repayment date was imminent, and the building was facing swift foreclosure by a small, aggressive investment group. Ni was quietly running himself ragged trying to fundraise the final, necessary amount while Adwa was innocently falling deeper in love. Akua saw her opportunity for ultimate betrayal. This wasn't just about winning the husband challenge, it was about destroying Adwa's one chance at true contentment while simultaneously gaining devastating control over Ni. She didn't approach her sister's suitor directly yet. Instead, Akua took $80,000 of her $100,000 initial capital, leveraging her mother's dormant, local bank contacts to discreetly buy the investment group's aggressive death note on the center. The foreclosure notice was now legally hers to wield. She then sent an anonymous, untraceable message to Ni's corporate email, detailing the debt transfer and inviting him to meet the new lien holder urgently. Akua knew exactly how she would play this. She would not demand marriage from Ni. She would offer Ni the immediate rescue of his life's work, the center, in exchange for a simple, devastating act of betrayal that would ensure Adwa was not only single but heartbroken. The price for the Hope Springs Youth Center was Ni's absolute, unwavering, and secretive devotion to Akua's plan. Ni met Akua in a sterile, private office overlooking the Atlantic, far from the sentimental glow of the Hope Springs Youth Center. Akua was brutally efficient, laying out the legal documents for the center's death note and a fresh, clean bank draft for $80,000. The center lives, Ni, she said, tapping the documents. The price is simple: you make Adwa believe you love her. You propose. But you must ruin her before she can present a ring to Mama. You will tell her, publicly or privately, that you used her, that you are not worthy, and that the emotional connection she felt was a calculated lie to access the Mensa network. You must break her, unequivocally. The choice was agonizing, a soul-crushing dilemma between his life's work and the purest love he had ever known. Ni looked at the documents, thinking of the hundreds of children who depended on the center, and knew his personal sacrifice was necessary. He swallowed his dignity, his love, and his future happiness, and signed Akua's confidentiality agreement. He would save the center, even if it cost Adwa's heart. 3 days later, Ni proposed to Adwa beneath the giant mango tree at the youth center, his voice trembling with a love that was terrifyingly real, even as he committed himself to its destruction. Adwa cried tears of relief and joy, seeing the marriage as her own quiet victory against her mother's cruel materialism. Convinced she had lost the race, Akua moved ruthlessly. She presented Kojo with a non-negotiable contract, a rushed, private marriage at the registry office within 24 hours, promising him exclusive, preemptive access to a vital cocoa transport deal. Kojo, focused only on the business advantage, agreed immediately. Madame Sawa announced a celebratory family dinner that Friday to publicly recognize the engagement of both her daughters. Adwa arrived, radiant and filled with genuine affection for Ni, unaware of the time bomb ticking beneath her joy. Akua, meanwhile, had spent the afternoon at the marriage registry. As the opulent dinner was being set, the devastation arrived, not as a public spectacle, but in a quiet, modern execution of cruelty. Adwa, smiling, checked her phone for a message from Ni. It was a single, cut text: "I can't do this, Adwa. I only needed the Mensa name to save the center. I'm sorry. You deserve better than a man who used you." Adwa's world dissolved. The room spun as the joy drained from her, leaving a chilling emptiness. She stumbled back toward her room, utterly shattered. At that moment, Akua, immaculate in a golden dress, strode confidently into the dining hall, a thin document clasped in her hand. "Mama," Akua announced, her voice ringing with the triumph of a conqueror, "I present the marriage certificate. I am officially Mrs. Kojo Asante. The challenge is over." Kojo stood by her side, a trophy man. Akua had secured a husband of genuine substance and fulfilled the core requirement of the challenge, sealing her victory. Madame Sawa smiled, a slow, terrible expression of profound satisfaction. "A true Mensa. You used every tool, Akua. Even the emotional ruin of your sister. You have won the bonus." She gestured to a small, heavy box. "Open it." Akua's hands shook with greed as she tore open the seal, expecting bonds or gold. Inside was not cash, but a portfolio of documents. Sawa's smile turned thin and lethal. "My dear, the lion's share of my liquid assets, the staggering bonus, was precisely $100 million in Golden Pod Holdings stock options, leveraged to the hilt. I used them for high-risk trading over the last month. They are now worthless. The company is teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, Akua. You have won the ownership of a spectacular debt, and the burden of saving a failing empire. That was the real test, not to find a husband, but to find a partner willing to stand beside you when the wealth disappears." Kojo, who had been listening to the conversation with mounting horror, paled instantly. He grabbed his phone and wallet. "I married the Mensa fortune, not the Mensa liability," he spat, turning on his heel and walking out of the mansion, leaving Akua standing there, a certificate in one hand and a useless portfolio in the other. Akua had won the contest, but in gaining the title of wife and the bonus, she had lost everything else. Her sister was destroyed by love, and she was destroyed by greed. Madame Sewa, having achieved her goal, to find which daughter had the ruthlessness to save the name, even if she had to lose everything, sipped her wine, watching the wreckage of her family with a silent, calculating air.